Hello friends, I'm Kayla, big fan of sports, bigger fan of books. Today's vlog is reading sports related books. I decided on this theme because I had a bunch of sports related books on my TBR and I figured let me read them all over the next month and a half and then put out this video. I scheduled this so it should go up right around the finals, at the end of the playoffs, at the end of the hockey season when we find out the Stanley Cup winner. Hopefully it's the Canadians. I don't have very high expectations because I don't even know if they'll be in the finals. Right now, in this moment, they made it to the third round, which I didn't expect. And they beat Carolina in the first game, which I also didn't expect. So anything could happen. I guess I'll update you if and when they get kicked out of the playoffs whilst I read all of my sports books. This one, Hot Girls with Balls, is about volleyball. Dixon Descending is about climbing Mount Everest. Crux is about climbing in some capacity. Oh, I'm also waiting for the next couple books in the Heated Rivalry or whatever it's called series to come in from the library, and I'm gonna read a couple of those. What else? Oh, there's the Open Era, a tennis romance. And then I have a couple other ones floating around the back of my head that I might want to pick up. There's also a nonfiction called Fair Play that just got recommended to me, so I might try that one out as well. Anyway, once I actually start reading one and I have something to say, then I will officially kick off the vlog. I'm kicking off the vlog with the Open Era. Tennis as a sport. I've never watched a game of tennis in real life or on TV, but I know there's so many iconic tennis players that I'll watch clips of, on TikTok. Maybe this vlog needs to be me finding a sport that I love, a new sport that I love. Because I already have a sport that I watch, that's hockey, I love hockey, but I need a sport to play. And I've tried playing tennis, could this be the sport? I'm just not fast enough to play tennis. But I have to tell you, I'm really liking this book. I read the first 10 chapters before updating you, so that's that far in. I couldn't find a sporty bookmark in my collection, but I went with this one because it has a bunch of romance books on it, all of the spines. Maybe one of these is sporty. No, I don't think so. There's only one on here. I don't know what it is. You with a View. Maybe if I saw the cover, I would recognize it, but maybe that one is about a sport. But this one I was intrigued to pick up because I like the idea of tennis, and it's a male-male romance written by a male author, and I feel like a lot of the books that I see talked about a lot, male-male romances, are written by women, and I just want to make sure that we all collectively are also supporting own voices. I know that's not a phrase that many of us are using anymore, but more own voices stuff just alongside everything else that we're reading. And I'm so glad it's going well because then I can recommend it to everybody. I feel like this was the perfect setup. This first 80, 90 pages was perfect. We met our main character, Austin. He is playing tennis in the first couple chapters. He's warming up. We're getting right into competition stuff. It's not this journey of somebody, being an amateur and getting into the professional league. And then it's also not somebody really deep into their career and wanting to retire. And I feel like those two situations are where a lot of sports romance sit. This one is more of the Heated Rivalry vibe, where you have the characters who were dropped into their lives right as they're becoming professional, becoming number one in their career and starting to compete for things. He is the first openly gay, I can't remember what it said, professional tennis player or participating in the, oh God, what's it called? The US Open. You get a vibe for his personality right away. He's very inclusive and supportive of other people, but he's struggling with what seems like panic attacks. And then he meets the love interest early on, and he's instantly warm and inviting, and I love his vibe. I could really just see those first 5 chapters being written and then shopped around and then picked up to be published. They were just so succinct and clean and perfectly done, and I hope that the rest of the book can live up to the introduction. And I really love the cover. These colors go so well together. I love the gradient. I love that this is the color of a tennis ball and it's just kind of blurred out and then you see it on the back. We haven't even gotten much of the dynamic between these two. We've gotten a little bit, but it is more about him playing tennis and the matchups that are happening and him warming up and talking about his history with tennis, his passion, and that's what I really want from a sports book, even a sports romance. So I'm very happy to be reading this today. Hello, it's bedtime. I forgot to update you while I was reading The Open Era. I didn't really have anything to say, to be honest, but I'm rating this pretty highly. For, like, I could be talked down a little bit, but I feel like rounding up to a 4 is good. So that's where we're gonna leave it. I'm sleepy, but I want to make sure that if this was marketed to you as a romance by, you know, the synopsis or me even talking about it, you should know that it is much more of a story, this man's story. Austin's journey is the focus, but there are 4 paragraphs here. 3 out of the 4 mention this relationship. Only 1 out of the 4 mention his anxiety, his struggle with his mental health. And I would say that is the focus of the book. This book and this plot would not exist without his panic attacks. That is the focus of the book. This book absolutely could have existed without the romance. And this was so well written, especially for a debut. There was not a single moment that I thought was like cringy or a misplaced scene. The literal word choices were good. The dialogue was good. Everything was good. So now I would love for Edward Schmidt to write a true romance, maybe even something more fun, because this was definitely heavier and more dramatic than what I had anticipated, but I got definitely on board with what the story was because it was well written and it was so much about tennis. Like, sometimes you read a sports book and it's just like, you know, that someone has watched a couple hockey games and they think NHL players are like really hot and so they want to write about them, which is fine. But in this case, you can tell that Edward Schmidt like knows tennis. Like, maybe he plays tennis or he goes to tennis games. Like, he knows what he's, and I don't even know that much about tennis, but I know that he knows. What kept it from being a 5 was not like the lack of romance, because I liked their relationship and I liked the journey they went on. It was that it didn't feel like a 20-year-old's voice. It was 20-year-old decisions, a 20-year-old making the decisions for sure. But it didn't feel like we were in the head of a 20-year-old. It felt like someone in their late 30s, 40s, maybe that's how old this author is, trying to sound like a 20-year-old. The voice was just far more mature than the character's actions. And in that case, maybe we could have written it in 3rd person and that would have made a little bit more sense. But I really did love the amount of tennis in here. It super worked for me, and that's always what I'm looking for in a book about sports. I want to be in the sport. Pace of it was so good, and there were still moments of surprise because I didn't know at what point in the competition the book was going to end, or like who was going to be paired up and who the matches were going to be between. There was a lot of elements that I was like, oh, I wouldn't have predicted that that's how this book is going to go. Kind of like watching like Marty Supreme. You can't really anticipate exactly how the competition is going to play out, and that's an interesting element of a fictional piece of media about sports, because typically when you're going to like attend one specific competition, the whole book is leading to that. It's like, you know that they're going to win or lose that one specific event. But in this case, where there's multiple matches and there's lots of people involved, I just think it was interesting to follow. And I just love a competition, and I love rivals to lovers. So it was fun. They were rivals, not rivals to lovers, rivals and lovers. As far as Steam, because I know somebody's going to want to know, there was like one, did I literally just flip right to it? There was one, I would say, paragraph, I think, in the entire thing that was a little steamy. That's that on that, and I'll talk to you again soon. I haven't started reading quite yet, but I just got a couple more books from the library. Oh, my battery's about to die. Is that what that's it? Yeah, okay. I've been wearing my sunglasses more because we were at the optometrist getting Liam new glasses, and he was trying to sell him on transition lenses. And I was like not even a part of the conversation. I was over here, and the eye doctor looks at me and he's like, you should be wearing transition lenses too. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you're gonna have a lot of trouble one day. And I was like, what? He was like, your eyes are big and they're light, and if you don't he said, if you don't start wearing sunglasses, as if he knew like in his soul that I don't wear sunglasses. I don't. Like, I don't know how he knew that. So I just caught a stray like across the entire store. So I'm trying to wear them more. Here's what I just grabbed. Fair Play. This is the nonfiction. And then I grabbed these two, which aren't technically sports romances, but hear me out. The women run cupcake businesses, and the men are athletes or former athletes. And so maybe there'll be some sports in them. He is a professional football player, Donovan Dell. So maybe there will be sports in here, even though it looks like he's just gonna be baking. I feel good about this. How rude, my battery died. Good thing I had a backup in here. I have these batteries that came with this camera, and I've got a couple extras. And then, well, I can't show you because it's in the camera, but I bought these other ones for backups, and they're white. And the other day I went to use my old camera that I haven't used in like a year, and I couldn't get the battery out. And once I banged it out of the camera, I realized it was because it was swollen, the battery, and I couldn't put it in like the battery charger. Like it had expanded, which I feel like is a really big fire hazard. So don't leave your batteries in your cameras, I guess, because the one I just put in here is the exact same kind, but it was just sitting in my glove box for the last probably 6 months. That's probably also not good to leave batteries out in the potential heat. Don't tell anyone about this. Oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble with the optometrist and the fire department in one day. Anyway, sports related, we're heading to the driving range. And only recently I discovered, which I'm sure everybody already knows, that the balls at the driving range and the balls when you're actually golfing at a golf course, like that you buy and that you use, are different. So all this year that I thought I was an incredible golfer because of the driving range, like, oh, I'm killing it, those aren't even the balls that you use at the actual course. Like if I went to try to actually play golf, I'd probably be terrible. No, I'd definitely be terrible. Anyway, I'm picking up Liam. We're heading to go golf. First, I would like to retract what I just said about this book because one, it's not her who runs the bakery. That was very sexist of me. It's him who runs the bakery in the off season while he plays football. And also, I just want you to know this is not a book about sports, and therefore I am just kicking it out of the vlog. I did finish it. I didn't like it, and I kept waiting for it to be about sports, and it was never about sports, even though this man was talking about continuing to play sports and like waiting for his next contract. Never once did we hear him talk about like working out, going to the gym, trying out for anything, talking to his agent, other than that's who was connecting him with this woman who was the worst. So anyway, I'll talk about that in my wrap up, but I have moved on to another book, and that's Dixon Descending. This is by Karen Outen. This is certainly more about sports. I am halfway through, and it's not what I expected, but like also when you go into a book knowing it's about mountain climbing, do you really expect it to be 300 pages of climbing the mountain? Maybe I did, but no, it feels so classic. Like, I don't know if it's just the time period that this is set in, but I would have said this was written in 2011, not just set in 2011. Like, this just feels like a product of its time. It is putting me in this time period so well, and just feels like it was written over 10 years ago. It feels like a book of that time. It's also very atmospheric in the coldness and the icy atmosphere. I love mountain climbing movies. I love mountain climbing books. Like, this is just something that I really enjoy documentary wise, like nonfiction. I've read Into Thin Air. I've read things related to it. The first time I ever saw an IMAX movie, it was like the Everest, whatever it was called, Everest. I also love the Alex Honnold Free Solo movie. I like somebody who's up against the elements, and it's just like your body in nature doing an activity. Like, that is a sport that I love hearing people talk about and watching people do. I remember seeing Everest in IMAX, and it like changed my life. So this definitely made sense for something for me to want to read. And in it, we're following a man and his brother who are attempting to be the first Black American men to summit Everest. But like a lot of movies from this time, or like the 90s, 2000s, it's not just about that. And especially when you have a character who's in a sports position, oftentimes it's them coaching a team or something. And there's always something with the students. There's a relationship with the students. There's them trying to solve something for a student. And then they also have their storyline on the side. And this is exactly like that. It just feels so nostalgic for me in a way I can't explain. I'm explaining it perfectly. But no, this was like a 2024 released. But I wasn't expecting all of these plot lines because I never really knew what this was. And it's him attempting this climb, and then also this really horrific bullying situation at the school that he works at, and him navigating relationships between these students. And it gets really bad. Both of these situations that are happening are bad, and I thought this would be more of like a heartwarming, like beautiful story of this man summiting this mountain and just like thinking about everything that he's done in his life, and that was the whole story. But no, there's so much trauma going on. I'm quite enjoying this. I don't even think I'm going to end up reading Crux, which I was thinking about, because I think this is satisfying my desire. But let's also have a little intermission to just talk about our favorite sports movies, because I feel like probably most of us have watched more than we've read. I think objectively, maybe I need to look at like a list of the best sports movies so I don't forget anything. There's a difference between the best sports movies and my favorite sports movies. The best are probably like Rocky, Remember the Titans, that kind of thing. And there's also a couple sports movies that I haven't seen, and it's still really embarrassing, that I feel like could be my favorites if I watched them, like Bend It Like Beckham and Whip It and A League of Their Own. I feel like I'll like those. Rob was just rewatching a High School Musical yesterday. And by watching High School Musical, I mean all three of them. And I think those are sports movies. You might disagree, but if I were to think of like my husband's favorite sports movies, it'd probably be like The Mighty Ducks and Creed and High School Musical and Space Jam. And I feel like I watched him watch Happy Gilmore recently. Definitely the Karate Kid, Johnny Tsunami. Like that kind of Disney vibe is definitely my husband's favorite sports movies. Is Fast and the Furious considered a sports movie? Maybe. Then I would count that too. But my favorites are also ones you would say is not really a sports movie, and it is, okay? Grind is on my list. Bring It On, Blue Crush, Love and Basketball, Stick It, Step Up, Center Stage, like dance movies, cheerleading movies. That's what I grew up with, and I just think that my taste is still very much stuck in my teen years. Like I haven't replaced any of my favorite sports movies since I was a teenager. Fight Club, Lords of Dogtown, that is definitely my taste, probably, as opposed to anything that's more a traditional team sport type of movie. Skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, like I love things like that. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. I feel like I can't even tell you anything about the plot now that I've hit halfway, because wow, we've done a lot, and it's really sad, and I would have known that if I read anything about it, even a blurb. Poignant, heartbreaking. From the Christian Science Monitor. Sure. What would you say is the best sports movie of all time?
I mean, Mighty Ducks for sure.
I knew it.
But I also really love Remember the Titans, so.
Oh.
She's the man.
I knew you'd say she's the man. Johnny Tsunami?
That's a pretty good one, actually. Bloodsport?
What's Bloodsport?
Creed.
That took me a minute to read. It was a lot. This man is reflecting, like we're in a couple different timelines. The effects of Everest, the impact of Everest, the aftermath is a big part of the story. And he's really, Dixon, like tormented by decisions that he's made, and he is suffering. And it has him thinking about his entire life. And I think it makes a lot of sense when you achieve something big, an accomplishment, it has you naturally reflecting on life. Like that's your sole focus. And once it's over, then everything you've been avoiding thinking about or doing with your life, it's like there's no other excuses not to confront them. But also the book is talking about ego, and it's talking about credit, and it's talking about perseverance and like being the first to do something and wanting to be proud of that. And there's like beautiful kind of moments, but overall the story is pretty heavy. And I think I'm gonna give it, I cannot give it a 5 because there were a couple small elements of this that I really didn't like, that I wish were done a little bit differently, but this was such a good book that I have to give it like a 4.5. And that's my highest rating of the month so far. I have gone many weeks at this point without a 5-star, but maybe we'll find one by the end of the video.
Nice job, man.
We're trying pickleball, and it's already so much more fun than tennis. We come to you after our first game of pickleball.
Yeah.
If tennis is a 3 out of 10 for me because when I play with Rob, that's the only person I play with, and he's very scary. And I just feel like I'm chasing the ball half the time. Then pickleball gets like a 7 out of 10. It just feels like big ping pong.
Yep.
Today's read is going to be Fair Play. This is a nonfiction, How Sports Shape the Gender Debates by Katie Barnes. I definitely expected this, and I am expecting this, to talk about trans athletes and non-binary inclusion in athletics. But right now we're just getting an introduction about sports in general and women being involved in sports and how they are discriminated against and not given the same budget, not given the same opportunities, kicked out of certain things. So obviously we need to establish that setup before we can talk about anything beyond the binary. And I'm really interested in this because I don't have a lot of information in my brain about this. Obviously I understand the general concept that women were not included in the same way they weren't included in many other things, and there was a constant fight for making space. A historical moment that came to mind for me, one of the only ones I can really think of, is I believe it was the first woman who ever participated in the Boston Marathon, and the book talked about her pretty early on, so I thought that was cool. I can't remember what her name, I didn't flag it. I have a library book, and so I can't highlight and tab the way that I want to, so I feel like I'm gonna regret grabbing this instead of my own physical copy. But it talked about that whole experience and what she went through and how it went down. That image is just so baked into my brain, her literally being pulled out of the race, but there were men there who were supporting her right to be there, in their opinion, and how races have evolved, and how at the time literally men were like, women cannot run for 20 miles, they will die, and just how obviously attitudes have changed. And then it talked a lot about, in the intro, well, not the intro, I guess I'm in the first couple of chapters, talked about American Ninja Warrior, which I've never seen, but I've never watched, but I've seen clips of, I understand the concept, but I didn't know the entire course is the same for everybody. And it was teaching me about the first women who completed it and their push for having a women-specific competition, so there's more opportunities for them to win the prize money, because even if the best woman who's ever done it is up against a bunch of men, the course is set up for people who are a little bit taller, a little bit more whatever, that does lean towards men. I think it's interesting already. It's introducing me to many things, I'm sure it's going to continue, that I don't know anything about in the sports world. It does seem pretty American-centric, but I mean, that's where a lot of money and attention in the country goes. I have these golf balls beside me because I've now been collecting the bright pink balls from the sports places whenever I see them, and these neon ones I got from Canadian Tire that are so bright, and I can't lose them because, yes, the official update is I've started playing golf and I love it. I took a couple clips my very first time playing, so I will run that for you in case you're interested. I don't know if I took any footage that was useful. And I have no form, so I don't want anyone to say anything about how I'm actually playing, but I am driving the ball onto the green many times successfully, and I feel really good about that. I haven't hit anybody, I haven't hit any trees, I didn't lose a single ball the first 6 holes that I played, and I feel like that was pretty successful. I'm playing golf for the first time. I did 2 really good swings. Did I do good?
Yeah.
And now I'm in a bunker.
There you go.
Got 5 on my first hole, and it was a par 4. This one?
Big one.
Big one? I put a ball in the water, I think.
Water has.
I don't know for sure though.
You went sploosh.
I was so sure I wasn't gonna lose a ball today. After the first 3 holes, I was like, I'm an incredible golfer, but I finally lost one.
Nice.
I don't know what happened to the footage on my phone. It all corrupted and it all looks terrible, which is probably for the best because you didn't need to see the terrible, terrible form that I had to see. When I input it into my editing program, it just looks absolutely terrible. But the good news is I got a cute little golf skirt and a golf dress. I don't know if I'm gonna like this quite as much, but I'm really excited about that skirt. And it can double as a pickleball skirt. I got this dress too. I just got a little package from Torrid. Liam is in the playoffs. So we have 3 back-to-back days of baseball and his team is in 2nd spot. So hopefully they find some good success this weekend. And I'm going to read a baseball romance. But first, I need to give you my final review of Fair Play. I feel like I almost always give nonfiction 4 stars. That's just my go-to rating. Unless it's really incredibly written or structured or something. And it feels like something that is intended to be amended over time and you get new editions of like every, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, depending on how this whole thing progresses in sports. Because policies are constantly changing and every single organization has a different policy, and some don't even really have to enforce their policies. Really, they can just say, oh, you can play this sport if you have been on hormone suppressants for 12 months. Then they can move the goalpost, or they can say, oh yeah, we now allow trans people to participate in this sport, but they can find some loophole within there to not actually allow them in. I learned a lot of things in here as far as who was putting on these sporting events, the competitions, and the fight, and who was against things and who fought for things over time, and how that's still going on, but more so like how things actually function, like who decided at what point it was testosterone specifically that decided if you were allowed to play or not, how much testosterone you are allowed to have in your body, naturally occurring testosterone, to be considered a woman or a man by these people. I learned that when they do this testosterone testing, there isn't a lot of regulation. So one group at one time may do it in one way, and then another group, if they're trying to write a paper on something, can do it in a totally different way, and your testosterone changes like before and after you're doing the athletic events. There are all of these rules that are being set in place that like you have to be on a certain type of hormone replacement or hormone suppressant for 12 months, 24 months or whatever to participate in certain sports in the group that you would prefer, that fit with your identity. But there's still so much like criminalization regarding access to gender affirming care that people can never actually accomplish these policies that are set before them. There was a lot about the policy, and I think this wasn't edited to the best of its like potential. Maybe each kind of chapter or essay was edited really well, like word by word, everything made sense. But I don't feel like somebody took a look at this entire thing and realized how repetitive it was, because that like 12-month policy thing was mentioned, I want to say at least 20 different times, probably in every single chapter. Like it didn't feel like in an intentional way that was reminding us of something that we learned. It was as if it was talking about it for the first time. It was like, there's this policy that you have to be on this for 12 months before you can compete. And that was just relayed over and over and over again. And so maybe if that was intentional, it could have gone, I just kind of wish this was differently written, differently organized. Maybe each chapter could have started with a timeline, like we are now in 1995 to 2000. Here is what the policy was. Here's the first trans person who tried to do this. And maybe if we had one specific person in each chapter that we were honing in on, because occasionally chapters would do that. We would be talking about a specific person that this author spoke to and got an insight into their sport and why they were passionate about it, and also the barriers that were in place for them. So perhaps if each chapter focused on a person, it wouldn't have felt as chaotic, because sometimes we were and sometimes we weren't. I really liked, especially at the beginning, we were talking kind of an overarching idea of masculinity and femininity and what that meant to different people, and how being seen as a lesbian in sports was like a negative thing, being assumed that you were a lesbian. And so a lot of women in specific sports wear ribbons in their hair, and that helped them feel like they were identifying more with the feminine side, and that people wouldn't assume they were lesbians. And I talked about that specifically, how obviously that's not a bad thing, but being assumed to have a certain sexuality was seen as negative by a lot of people, and how gymnasts, females, are always assumed to be straight, and if you're a gymnast and a male, you're always assumed to be gay. And so if then you are gay and you lean into what would be perceived as more gay attributes, the rest of the gymnast community is mad at you, because now you're perpetuating that in the sport, and they don't want to be associated with that. I feel like maybe the author could have gone a little further in just talking about how that's obviously not a negative thing to not be straight. But I think Katie Barnes was trying really hard not to put their own personal opinion in any of this. It was just fact-based. So I don't think they ever wanted to say, and obviously we know all of that is bad. It was just giving us facts. And the strongest part of this was unfortunately the shortest part of this, and what I would imagine is the part that would disappear once this was amended, because it was a little bit of personal opinion at the end and how the policies they imagine could change in the future. I respect that for sure, that it was 227 pages before we got any personal opinion. And you might think that's like a decent sized chunk, but half of this is actually acknowledgement. So it was a very small amount where they say there comes a moment in most interviews, whether I'm in the interviewer or the interviewee, where someone asks me the dreaded question, what do you think is fair? My typical answer is some word salad about how it's not my job to recommend policy. It isn't. I want to be clear, I'm not advocating a position that I want you to believe. I hope that as you've read the first 11 chapters of this book, you've been considering your own positions on these issues, your values, and what you believe to be true as it concerns gender and sports. If I'm asking you to do that, then I think it's only fair that you know unequivocally where I stand, though I do reserve the right to change my mind, as do you. And this is where in the book, they put their own thoughts on like how they imagine sports should go and who should belong where, and how when it comes to youth sports, this shouldn't even be that much of a conversation, how transgender youth participating in school sports shouldn't be a problem, and how there's no actual need to sex separate sports before puberty, let alone restrict access to those sports on the basis of what amounts to pure animus. They highlighted the benefits to athletes when they are forced, I guess, to play with people of different sexes, different genders. Really, all the best quotes were in these like 10 pages. I seem to have forgotten that this is where the majority of us experience sports for most of our lives, is recreational and intramural. Chances are if you're reading this book, you didn't go to the Olympics. There's a very small window of competitive high school sports where these questions become messiest, but other than that, unless we're looking at high-level elite sports, that just shouldn't be an issue. And also talked about how people have this idea that somehow transgender people have sports superpowers. Just because a person is trans doesn't mean they will be good at sports. There was a little paragraph about that I wish we got deeper into, because there's this statistic, or there's, I don't know, there's just like this whole thing about when you specifically hate something or fear something, you overestimate how much of that thing is present in reality. So people who are transphobic, who don't believe that trans people should be in sports, who don't want to be around trans people at all, who are just hateful, if you ask them, like, what percentage of the population do you think is trans? They would say like 20%, because that's all they're focused on. They're so hyper fixated on the thing that they hate so much that it's all that they think about, and therefore they see it so much more than it actually exists, when in reality trans people in sports is such a small amount. And again, it's overblown with like the couple people who've been really successful, while there's a ton of non-binary and trans folks who are in sports who aren't winning gold, they're just participating. And I kind of wish that the book had touched on that. I understand why it wouldn't want to talk about the people who are against it, but since we're talking so much about policy, I found it a little bit odd that we never covered people specifically and why they were doing this, or what their thought process was, what their ideology was, what their background was, and like how this has become such a problem in so much of the population's minds. Like, we can assume that ourselves as readers, but it was just never touched on at all. Also, we never touched on like just the concept of gender and sex as like a colonial thing, how far before any of these professional sports existed, far before sex and gender was talked about, existed the way that it does, and especially Western society, like people were existing who didn't subscribe to either identity. I thought this book was good. It was effective. It'll teach a lot of people a lot of things. This author is very intelligent. I certainly hope that we make a lot more progress and policies make a lot more sense in years to come. And there's like an amended version of this that throughout time that gets more and more inclusive, because it didn't leave it in a very hope-filled way. And that makes me feel bad for athletes who are trying so hard to just participate in a sport. So I just stopped at the library to get a whole bunch of books. This was one of them, The Prospects by Katie Hoffman. I believe this is a trans author. And in here, he is writing about a trans player. Underdog and optimist Gene, the first openly trans player in professional baseball, has everything he's ever let himself dream of until Luis, Gene's former teammate and current rival, gets traded to the team, upending the careful equilibrium of Gene's life. That sounds exciting. While I was there, I was given this. There's like a summer reading club happening at my library, and I'm excited to see if I can like check things off. Apparently there are prizes. She was telling me all about this, which was nice because I'm trying so hard to talk to more people. I'm not an introvert at all. I'm just not very friendly. I go to self-checkout all the time, like whether it's a grocery store or the library. I just don't engage with people very often, like strangers specifically. I've been trying to go out of my way to do that, and it went well because I got a lot of information about this today, and I wouldn't have if I did my little self-checkout by myself. My besties will know, last time I went to the grocery store and I tried to talk to a stranger, it did not go well. I ended up, leaving with 50 pounds of raw meat. The most recent time I went to the grocery store, I was wearing that cat shirt. I met a lady in the aisle behind me who had a cat bag and cat shoes on, and she noticed my cat shirt. She was like, oh my God, where did you get that? And then I ended up in line ordering it for her to be delivered to her house because she didn't know how to use the website because she had to have been like 80 years old, but was in love with the cat shirt. And so that was a positive experience after like the chaotic meat debacle of 2026. And now it's okay to talk to people. I can talk to people. I'm just trying to be friendlier. So I'm heading out to Liam's baseball, and I'll read some of this and I'll let you know about it by the end of the day, how it's going.
Yeah.
Same spot, different day. I have started reading the prospects. In fact, I'm now halfway through and I like it so far. I feel like it's really similar to the setup of the open era as far as these characters who shouldn't get along and then they instantly build this rapport. But at this point, I'm expecting it to get more romantic than more about the main character's life and therefore the romance that I'm looking for. So Gene is on the team and Luis joins the team. They're both used to being shortstop, and so they're kind of competing over that position, and Gene has to get used to playing second base. And we're getting so much gameplay, actively going through games, and at the start of each chapter, it'll talk about the current record for the team and what they're up to and the date. And as I was sitting there reading, like the very first game that got some real gameplay, they won 12-3, and they were like, we're so proud and this is such a good score. And that's literally how Liam ended his baseball game that we were at, was 12-3. And then today, since they moved on to the next round, they just played another game and it was close for a minute, and then somebody got a grand slam and suddenly they were up by 3, and I think it finished 8-4. So tomorrow they're playing for the gold medal game. What's really different about the dynamic between these two compared to the open era, and also a lot of sports romance, because oftentimes the characters are meeting for the first time because they're just like on a team together all of a sudden, they're meeting, they're rivals, whatever. In this one, they actually know each other already. They previously played together and they have certain like memories of who that person was. And so it's like getting to know each other again, and almost this familiarity that feels warm and comforting, like could feel warm and comforting, but because they're so different and they don't know how the other one feels about them, especially as they both change so much or each other's expectations are different of one another. And so it feels fresh and it feels kind of new and it feels kind of awkward, especially with them wanting to play the same position and being taken seriously on the team. And they both want to go play in the major leagues. Is there space for both of them? I just like that we're following a whole season and their hopes and dreams, slowly getting to know each other again. It's just now starting to get a little romantic. Up until this point, it was like awkward, and then they started sharing some glances, and then it was like, is there something here? Should we not? Because it could risk everything that we're hoping for our careers. And it's just a warm feeling with the atmosphere of a competitive sport. We're on our way to the final game. So excited. And I finished my book, so that's exciting too. I'm giving this one a 4. And I think what's nice about this I'm having a bit of an allergic reaction to something. I'm like I have that red thing here and my cheeks feel a little bit red. I took one of my pills, but this hasn't happened since like last summer. But I think it's just nice. I want to mention about publishing. It was a big deal. I mean, it is still a big deal when anybody gets to feel represented in publishing, especially in like romance. Getting a trans romance was unheard of. I don't know, like 5 years ago. And they were often written, and I think like publishing pushed them to be for a specific audience who didn't identify with the author and with the main character, and therefore had to do a lot of explaining identity stuff. And not that there's anything wrong with that, like that's still, I'm sure, a thing in tons of books, but especially the books that I've been reading lately, written by trans authors, feels like it's for the trans community. And I think that's really cool that you get to flip open this book and it's not explaining your identity to you. It's not explaining how the main character feels about dead naming versus the entire community's feelings on that, how people feel about gender dysphoria, how the main character feels about old photos of themselves, and also how the entire trans community might feel about that and how it might differ. I think there's a lot of pressure that was put on authors being like the first to write a lesbian romance that was like within traditional publishing, the first Indigenous author to get a traditionally published romance, to not just be able to write a book and represent themselves and talk about their own story or their character story, but also to like make sure that they were representing an entire community. And if they weren't, then to at least acknowledge that and be like, this character feels this way, but maybe the entire community doesn't. And there's like so many disclaimers in a lot of books like this that I was reading 5 years ago. And with publishing expanding, there are still so many issues in publishing and people are still not getting opportunities. But it is so nice to see from the outside like this happening, because I can recognize it in this book that it didn't have to do all of this over explaining. It didn't want to be that, and it didn't have to be that in order to be published. And people can just pick up this book and enjoy being represented by something, and I think that that's so awesome. I just really love how especially the sex scenes were done, and there wasn't like over explaining in that element either to the reader. That's like, here's what I look like, and here's what I used to look like, and here's why I think this person might be hesitant or might whatever. The book didn't need all of that. It was just this comfortability between these two people, and they just like went with it, and it was all cool, and it was fine, and it was lovely, and it was sexy. I think the only reason this would be a 4 and not a 5 is I don't think that the conflict was perfect for me. I think it felt a little bit silly, but that is definitely something that I think publishing traditionally published romance isn't going to get away from anytime soon, like the typical arc, and how there always has to be, like every single book has a conflict, obviously. I just think it didn't feel the most fleshed out, but I really liked their journey together. I liked how much sports it talked about. I could have used a little bit more, but I liked getting to hear about where the characters are going to go in the future and the lives that they envision for themselves together and within their careers. And I've realized that I talk all the time about how I love books that are about jobs, and I never really associated the fact that I also like sports books for that reason, because athletics, like that's a job, and so I like watching people navigate their careers. Now to the game. Hopefully it goes well.
That was top of box on that one. Come on.
They won gold! Check it out. A medal. Liam doesn't think it's the most worth celebrating. Like, it's a little cringy because it's just double A. I think it's exciting no matter what. When you win for the entire season, you beat all the other teams. I'll feel celebratory for him. So I'm doing all of my gold. I'm wearing my goldish shirt, and I'm reading my gold book, and I've got my gold bookmark. So I'm reading Carrie Soto is Back, which actually would be a good one for the buzzword challenge next month. Something with a metallic cover, if you're one of the few people who've never read it. You know, because Taylor Jenkins Reid's most popular books I didn't end up loving, I've been hesitant to pick up other things, but then I picked up Atmosphere last year and I gave it a 4, and this one's going well. I read the first 80 pages. I've been patiently waiting for a call today to pick up my vehicle because I dropped it off yesterday because it needed the brakes done. I feel like every time I go, they're like, oh, you don't quite need them yet. You don't quite need them yet, which is great because I love a mechanic who's not just gonna take my money and do something unnecessary. But I really feel like I need them done. And so I took it in another time, and they gave me a call and they were like, okay, so you have 1 millimeter left of your brake pad on your left side and less than 1 millimeter on your right side. And I was like, how many millimeters am I supposed to have? And they were like, not 0. I was like, okay. So they changed all my brakes. And then he said, when he was changing my caliper, he was doing something to a caliper and something broke off, and then it started pissing oil everywhere. That's what he said. So they had to keep my vehicle overnight. Piece that he needed to replace didn't come by the end of the day. So now this morning I'm waiting. And the beginning of Carrie Soto has been really interesting. I didn't really know the plot of it. I just knew it was about tennis. So I was surprised in the first 20% of the book, she gets everything that she wants. Like the whole first couple chapters are her as a child and her father being a tennis player and being obsessed with tennis and him wanting her to be the greatest tennis player in the world. And then she achieves all of that in the first 80 pages. So I was like, wow, we're like at a breakneck pace here. What the heck is this book even going to be about? She has a little bit of a tense relationship with a couple people, and she ended up winning everything that she ever wanted, basically beat the people she needed to, got all the titles she wanted, and then she was forced to retire. So that's where I'm now at in the book, is 5 years later, after recovering from things, she wants to return to tennis. And it's like everyone around her is saying, I believe in you, I want to support you, but also how do you think you're going to be as good as you once were now that you're in your 30s and you have injuries? And so she's getting back on the horse, essentially. She's training again. She's a very singularly focused main character. She has this drive, she has this ambition that her father instilled in her at a very young age, and almost to her detriment. That's he was saying, you're going to be the best tennis player that ever existed. I'm going to be the one that gets you there. And so she just ended up ignoring everything else in life to accomplish this one thing. And now she should probably just exist in the glory and not have to try to accomplish it all again after setbacks. But she is super confident that she can accomplish them all and be considered the greatest athlete in existence. I definitely prefer how this one is written compared to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. Even though I love mixed media in general, that's why I thought I would love Daisy Jones and the Six, and then I really didn't. Excuse you. But this one, just being from Carrie's perspective, in Carrie's head, I think it's interesting. Actually, this one is tied to another one of her books. Which one is it? I don't remember. I feel like this character was introduced in a different book, but I can't remember which it is or if I've read it before. Maybe it's Malibu Rising, because that one is mentioned in the synopsis. Having a good time so far, definitely intrigued, liking and disliking Carrie in equal measure, which I'm sure is exactly as intended by the author, and I will keep you updated. Okay, I haven't read any more of my book, but I did get my vehicle back. Look at it. It probably looks the same to you. Well, it does look the same on the inside. And I just picked up a package and I thought I would share with you. It has nothing to do with sports, nothing to do with this video, but it's exciting to me. Now, if you're my husband watching, which you might be because it's a sports related video, I would like you to know that I would like the other 4 books for Christmas, but I ordered myself the first 4 books in the Emma M. Lyon series. I just love these, the look of these, so much more than the paperback. And these are hard to find, and there's one website that I feel like sells them. And I got an email saying they had restocked, and I almost bought myself the entire collection, but it was gonna be $400 once it was shipping was considered, and still just these 4 was a lot. I read the first one and the second one already, and now I can read the third and fourth, which are the prettiest ones. These colors are incredible, and they're also a little bit longer, and then this collection is gonna look so good on my shelves. Really thought I was gonna finish this book today, but between going back and forth, picking up my vehicle, and going downtown all of a sudden quite late at night and then staying down there for hours. We just walked around, enjoyed the sunset. We played pickleball for a while. I haven't gotten past the halfway point. It was fun. We just got a little moment of the Jenkins verse or something like that, where like all the books are kind of connected, or just acknowledge each other or acknowledge that they're all in the same universe. So she just mentioned that she was reading the Daisy Jones biography, which was fun. A big selling point for me for this book is it is so much about tennis. Like so much sports. Sports are not like the backdrop of the story. It's not all of this personal and family and friendship stuff with her, and then tennis is the backdrop. Tennis is the main character of this book. It's like every single time she's on the court, every single match, we get every single detail of it. Like how after each, set or whatever, she's telling us how that person moved, how that person was different than the person she played before, and how she's going to now adapt her style to beat them on the next set. And she has conversations constantly with other people, her dad, with other players. She's starting to let other people into her life a little bit more. And she's learning a couple lessons, but she still is the same character she was from the beginning. She is very confident, overly confident, and talking about how the media is perceiving her and talks about her just as a woman, but also with her specific like style or attitude towards things, and how she's expected to act. She's supposed to be humble, and she's supposed to be kind, and she's supposed to pretend to be surprised every time she wins something, but she is unlikable to the press, and she sticks to that, and I think that's really fun. A con of this is it has gotten so repetitive. Not just the sports part, but the talking about the sports part. She's had the same conversation with the same people 3-4 times by now, just in the last like 150 pages, where everyone's like, okay, Carrie, you're not the same player you used to be, and you're older, and here is this part of your body that doesn't work the same, and here's how this new fresh young player is going to behave on the court and how you need to respond to them, and you're not going to be quite good enough, so you need to adapt things this way. It's like to her dad, to another player, to herself. Every single person, we're having the same conversations over and over again. And of course it makes sense because she is repetitively playing tennis. So what other conversations are we going to have in and amongst it? She has to talk about how she's planning on winning the match, how she compares to everyone else, but it's really been the same shit over and over again. Another con kind of is that I feel like I have read this same thing from her before. I feel like she very often gives us a character where something comes really naturally to them, or they're just automatically really good at something, or they try really hard to accomplish something. And then the book wants to throw a challenge at them a little bit later in life where they have to try harder than they did before. And though all of her main characters are a little bit different, I feel like we do really get a lot of like bull-headed women, which is great, who know exactly what they want. But this construction of giving them the same type of obstacle every time, I don't think it's very exciting. I did it. I opened my eyes this morning. I immediately picked up my book and I finished it. I liked this book. I just feel like it was a little predictable. It's kind of the exact story that you think it's going to be when you pick it up. And that can be comforting and enjoyable for most people. But as someone who is probably unfairly, like always looking to be surprised and caught off guard, like I wanted there to be twists and turns, and like Taylor Jenkins Reid doesn't write those kind of books. So I don't know why that's what I'm looking for. I am going to give this a 3.75. That is a rating I have given out more than anything else this year. There's just so many books that I feel like are objectively 4 stars, but I like them a little bit less. So I give them a 3.75. I've given that out so many times this month, this year. And I feel like because so many people have already read this, maybe it's okay to spoil it. I just don't know how to talk about the predictability of it without kind of spoiling the whole arc that we're on. It's very clear from the beginning that Carrie Soto isn't flawed in the way that she exists in the world and in her sport because she's winning, because she is so dedicated. But obviously, we have to see her go on a journey and self-reflect and change a little bit, but she's not going to change so much that she's an entirely different person because that wouldn't be right for the book. And so she does come to let other people speak, to let other people critique her. She loses her father, and that has a big impact on her journey because he is the one who pushed her to be so good, and he believed in her so much. And she only started to doubt herself when he doubted her. His doubt wasn't in a bad way, it was in a realistic way. But she was like, I need you to believe in me. That's all I've ever known, is that like you were fighting for me harder than I'll ever fight for me. And then once he passed, she had to fully rely on herself. And there was a moment where I thought maybe she'll still win it all, because then it's like, oh, she can do it by herself without her dad. But that didn't feel authentic to the book. I feel like once we introduced the other character who was also breaking barriers of her own, we knew that she was going to win and she was going to become the greatest tennis player of the time, and Carrie was going to have to move on. And there was a really beautiful quote where she said, I'm no longer the greatest tennis player in the world, now I can be something else. And that is exactly what the book is. Like, I just feel like that's so clear from the beginning that she is going to lose by the end and she's going to have to move on with her life. And that's the beautiful journey. It's not watching her win, because we watch her win, like I said, in the first quarter of the book. And based on how they introduced that other character, and then we got to see her humanity too, and how much we were supposed to like that character, we obviously knew she was going to take the title by the end. What I wasn't expecting in here was that she was going to have a love interest. She was going to have a partner in the book, and I really loved their dynamic. It didn't become a romance book whatsoever, but he was a great character, and she obviously needed someone once she was losing everything to be supportive beside her, and he was doing his own tennis thing. And also I was like, is he gonna win it all at his age and at his performance level? Like, could he take it all? But he didn't either. And as much as that felt a little bit disappointing in the moment, like there's no other way that this book could have gone but Carrie kind of stepping down and realizing that taking other people's critique is important, and she can fall in love and it's not going to ruin her career, that she can live in the moment and appreciate all the beautiful places as she's traveling around the world. But she still kept her core identity of being confident, of being proud of herself, and snide to other people a little bit, but she also let people in. It was a good journey to be on. I don't think I get the 5-star glowing reviews like this is the most incredible thing of all time, but I had a good time and I'm glad that I read it. I haven't talked about any of the NHL stuff because the Canadians got kicked out pretty early compared to obviously where I thought they would be. And my little intro, I'm thinking back on now in my jersey, just feeling like, oh my God, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. They did not. In fact, they didn't make it to the next round. And then it was a couple teams I really didn't care too much about in the final. I am glad that the Hurricanes won, but mostly because I didn't want Vegas to win. My favorite sport to watch is still hockey. I think I should give tennis a go. Maybe I should try to watch soccer, because now everyone's obsessed with the World Cup stuff. And I think soccer is pretty boring to watch, not as boring as football. I watched a lot of football when I was a teenager, but it was just because I liked a boy who liked football. But football is so slow and it's so dull. Maybe I should get into watching volleyball. I am DNFing this, unfortunately, just as a quick little update in case you were wondering what my thoughts on it were. I just don't like the writing style of this. I don't know if I would give it another go. I just think it was a little too clearly like parody, and maybe I like my satire to be a little more subtle. It was just very referential and pop culture-y right from the very beginning. And I just didn't like the vibe of the writing. So that's a bit of a bummer, because I really wanted to read that one. I think I'll talk to you next on the golf course. Check it out, I'm golfing again. I'm doing my first 18 hole today because the last 2 times were 9 holes. And I grabbed the audiobook of 7-10 Split. I was looking for romance books about golfing. I couldn't find any that looked appealing, but bowling, I would love to learn about bowling. I'm gonna get a hole in one. There he is. He doesn't believe in me. Did you guys see that? Was it amazing? Whoa. Update, we're on hole number 9. That's hole number 9. I've lost 3 balls. I lost another ball in the trees, but I can't afford to lose it. Like, if it goes in the pond, obviously I'm cooked, but this one just went in the trees, so I need to hunt it down. Let me know if you see it. Oh, I found it. It didn't go in the trees. Whoa! There are these birds here that they're chirp sounds like they're laughing at me and I really don't appreciate it. Okay, I'm trying to get it over a bridge. I need to document it in case I'm successful and incredible. Oh! It ricocheted into the water.
Ew!
Okay, I started my bowling romance. Can you see me? Can you hear me or see me? Can you see me and hear me? It's cute, it's fun. It's these two teachers at the school. And they used to be together when they were, no, they used to be like best friends. And then I guess they kissed one time and now they haven't spoken in like 10 years. And now they are teaching at the same school and they both want to start a bowling club. But one of the teachers has been pushing for it for a long time and people like have it out for her and don't want her to have this club. But then this new teacher comes, their names are Grace and Ava, and the newer one introduces the idea of this bowling club and the whole school is automatically like, oh my God, yeah, we should do that. And so she kind of took credit, not really, but it feels like she took credit for the other girl's idea. And now the other girl is even more mad and they have this history together. But I think it's gonna be pretty rooted in miscommunication. Like they both were interested in each other, but then neither one of them wanted to like ruin their friendship. But in essence, they ruined their friendship anyway. Oh my God, so close. Good job. Good job, Kayla. And that's golf. First update, golf is officially a 10 out of 10 sport for me. I think it's my favorite. I'm really glad that I did it. I was so scared going golfing because I was like, obviously I'm gonna hit people, I'm gonna have to yell for, I'm gonna swing and miss all the time and embarrass myself, but I'm better than I thought I would be. And maybe I also like it because it's like one of the only sports where I don't have to run. Anyway, I am gonna get my own clubs. I wanna find some pink ones. I love zooming around in the golf cart. And okay, my final thoughts on the 7-10 split. This is a 3-star romance. And I feel like for everyone, this would be a 3-star romance. It's simple. We don't get too much into their backstories, their dynamic, their relationship, the sports of it all, their careers. It's just all kind of surface level, enjoyable, easy read. This was probably the least about sports, and I should have thought about it going into it because they're not really playing. Like there's an occasional recreational time where they bowl a little. Actually, I really do like bowling too. That's maybe like a 9 out of 10 sport for me. Maybe also because I don't have to run. But my wrist hurts a lot by the end of it. It's not them playing the sports. Like they are not technically the athletes of the book. It's their students. And because it's their students and they're not the main characters, we're not even really learning. I didn't learn anything about bowling. I don't even remember any of the students' names or like what scores they got or how the competition really worked. It was just kind of a general, oh, this girl went up and she did this frame. I don't even know the terminology. This girl got a strike and then this girl didn't get a strike and then it's over. It's definitely more about their relationship and just deciding if being together is the right thing for them based on their past together. There's various little conflicts keeping them apart, but really this is a very low plot book. Not very much happens. Definitely didn't feel like a 280-page experience. I'd probably recommend the physical read over the audio read just because it's only one narrator and the voices that she does to distinguish them from one another. I didn't really like the voices she put on for one character and it was kind of distracting, but I don't know if other people are that picky about audio experiences. Glad I read it. Not much to say about it. Now it's time for our final book of the video. The Long Game by Rachel Reed. There was a world in which I was going to read whatever the one that comes before this is because people have told me it gives a little bit of backstory. So maybe if I read the first third and I feel like I'm missing something, then I'll go back and pick that one up. But I do want to wrap up this video today, so I'm just gonna read this one, I think. And it's pretty long. I can't remember how long the first one was, but this one is a good 400 pages. And I feel like it picks up not too far after Heated Rivalry. I know there's been books in between and different storylines in between. I really just want to read this so when I watch season 2 of the show, I like know the plot beats that we're hitting so I can compare and see like how similar or different things are, because that's something I really liked about reading the first book. I read it after I saw the show and I do think that what's the word? Like inflated my rating. I gave Heated Rivalry a 4 when I feel like the writing really wasn't actually that good, but I liked the story and I liked the characters and I felt close to the story because of the show. And now I'm excited to do it in the opposite way. So I'll check in with you soon. I thought I didn't have any sports bookmarks, and then I remembered this one that I cross-stitched in like a sports font, you know? I always wish that I made this a little bit better because the glue that I used just went right through it, but maybe I'll get back to cross-stitching someday. It's been a while. So Heated Rivalry, which isn't even the first book in the series, is about Shane and Ilya, if you don't know, and they are on rival hockey teams in the NHL, and it follows like 10 years of their life, going back and forth, hooking up, being together, but not being out to anyone, especially in the hockey world. And I guess, again, this is spoilers because I can't talk about this at all without talking about that. At the end of that book, start to let people know. There's a handful of people who now know about their relationship, though it's still not public. The book kicks off with them running this camp together. They had this goal to run a charity, and now those things are happening and they're still actively playing sports. And I thought that this book was going to be more about like them approaching retirement time or retiring and like being together, but that's not what the story is. I guess I didn't really know about the timeline. So I can't imagine there's going to be multiple more books about, well, I guess I don't know what happens in the second half, but also multiple more seasons of this show. The dynamic is still really similar, even though they're in love now and committed to each other. Ilya is still really funny and just like fucking with Shane constantly. Like they were having an intimate conversation and then Ilya was like, oh, and by the way, you're on speakerphone. And Shane freaked out, of course. And I think little moments like that are very cute. This is very focused on Ilya, which I think we needed because there's a lot that he's struggling with. And of course, the first book and just Shane coming out to himself, to his family, to the hockey world was such a big part of it. But I feel like we didn't address in the book as much as we did in the show, Ilya's relationship with Russia and his family and the losses that he's experienced. And in here, he's very much confronted with those. And I don't think I'm missing out on anything. Well, I'm sure I'm missing out on stuff, but not major plot points because the book constantly reminds you of things that have happened in an annoying way for the first book, or the first like Heated Rivalry book that I've read. And so I imagine the other allusions would probably annoy me too if I had just read the book that came before this one, because apparently Ilya is prominently featured in that one too. I guess I can understand it because it's been multiple books in between, and for a lot of readers it's been years before they've read that book. But for me, having just read it a couple months ago, I find the constant reflections a little irritating. It'll constantly, every couple chapters be like, and this room reminded them of that room that they filmed the commercial in back when they first had their rivalry. And then in like a couple chapters later, it's like they were looking through photos and they saw that photo of them doing a speech at that award ceremony, and they remembered how much they looked at each other and cared about each other in that moment, and all these realizations. And then like the last time he was in a bar like this was when he was with Rose and he said this and she said this. And I'm like, oh my God, just get to the plot of this book. There's not really a lot of plot in the book. It's more them growing closer and also further apart, and this constantly shifting dynamic because they can't fully be together, but they love each other so much. And so there's the pressure of hockey still, but they're not really like coming into contact with each other in the athletic sense the same way they were in the last book. They're more just doing their own things and being independent. And Ilya's having a lot of moments where he has to confront the difficult things that have happened to him and how he feels, you know, not being the most familiar with the language and the culture and being worried about his future. And Shane doesn't always really understand that. And I don't think he's supposed to be our favorite character because he has a lot of realizations to make. Meanwhile, Ilya, I think Rachel Reed just prefers Ilya as a character. What I'm liking about this is the long distance representation and how these two characters, every time they're together, they're avoiding any difficult conversations because they have such limited time together and they just want to have a lot of sex. I've honestly skipped like half of those scenes. There's been so many, probably 6 already just in 200 pages. And they just want to be together and they just want to be happy and they just want to have a good time and they don't want to have to confront the difficult things about their relationship. Therefore, it comes out in different ways, and when they should be having conversations, they don't. And so then they end up having an argument that they could have avoided. Liking it enough, feeling like it's going to be a 3-star by the end. Final rating. is going to be a 3, which makes for a good stack of books that I read in this video that I will be unhauling at the end of the year that I just purchased like this week. But you know what? I'm happy with how popular the series is. There is like a 6-month wait list, I think, from my library to get my hands on this that way. I was keeping my eye out for any scenes that I feel like were written so we could get like a cinematic TV moment. And there was only really a couple that I am excited to see. There was one scene on a plane that maybe will be a little bit exciting, a little bit different. Oh, this came out in 2022. Why did I think this was like a brand new release? I didn't realize this had been out for that long. I figured like this was written recently and would have had the show in mind. I wonder if the book would have been written differently with the show in mind, like adding more moments that could translate to TV really well. How incorrect of me. I will say I was annoyed by a couple things. One thing that I feel like a lot of people will be, but it turned out, you know, for the best anyway. But I was also not into, how would I say it without spoiling it, like a profession of love type moment. It just felt like it was in the wrong place. It felt like I should have waited longer. It felt like there should have been more buildup and more planning. And I expected it to not go down exactly how it went down. But of course, this is a good feeling kind of book. So you're just supposed to enjoy everything that's happening. And I liked it enough. There was one steamy like phone call scene that I really liked. We've already kind of gotten that in the show. So there's nothing in here really that I am excited to see visually, just more of their relationship. And by that, I just mean more of the actors. I love the actors on Heated Rivalry. And I wonder if like in the first season, there's going to be an episode dedicated to another couple, or if that was only really to respect like the first book in the series. And also it was impactful for how these characters navigated their sexuality publicly after that. But I am curious if they would do that again, because I know there's been some books in between and they obviously are going to have an impact on this couple. I liked it enough. I definitely am good on the series. We'll continue watching the show. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this sports vlog. I know it's super late. I feel like I said that up front in my summer TBR. I was like, things are gonna be a little unorganized, a little delayed, but I didn't think it would happen this quickly. But summer is really kicking my ass. And by kicking my ass, I mean in a good way. I'm enjoying life outside of the reading and vlogging. I wish I had found a 5-star by the end of this vlog. That's okay. There's a handful of books that I also wanted to read for this video, but they didn't come in time. And in fact, they're on their way in the mail. So I need to read them like on my own at some point now, which is exciting. And if you want to let everybody know your favorite sports related books, sports related movies, I'm sure we would all love to hear it in the comments. And I'll see you next time. Bye!